Hello everybody, it's me Xenia, back after a bit of a hiatus. Today we're going to discuss this large book, Les Miserables, which is an epic historical novel published in 1862 by the French author Victor Hugo, and is considered one of the best books in the entire world, especially by the French. It is published during the American Civil War. That's not connected. I'm interested always in what contemporary things are going on when a book is published. So while all the history is going on in this book, this is what's going on in America, the Civil War. This book gives very detailed history of certain episodes in French history. The aftermath, you might say, of the French Revolution and the wind-up of the Napoleonic Wars. And the characters in the novel appear in some of these episodes that are described. The digressions. These are called the digressions. They're very famous or infamous, depending on how much tolerance you have for them. And in these digressions, these long historical interludes where the plot does not advance, occasionally a person will appear in it in a very minor way, like a military person or something will appear in one of these military digressions, and the person might show up maybe 300, 400 pages later as an actual character in the story. There's a lot of these digressions include political issues most Americans don't know too much about, and with a lot of names that are unfamiliar to most of us. So let's go through the characters. The main character, of course, is Jean Valjean. He also uses other names for himself. He's the protagonist. And he was convicted for stealing a loaf of bread to feed his sister's starving children. So this is kind of a theme in this book about the unfairness of the French judicial system at that time. So he goes to jail and he has a sentence, but he tries to escape a few times, so his sentence gets extended continually. Finally, he's let out. But he's not really free because he's on parole and he has these papers. And so whenever he would try to apply for a job, he'd have to bring out his papers and they would say he was a criminal and no one would ever hire him. And he was in a really bad state, really. He couldn't find a job, he couldn't do anything, and he was thinking he was going to have to go back to a life of crime, when this saintly bishop discovers him and lets him stay at his house overnight, and maybe would have longer if events hadn't happened. So this is not the bishop you might be thinking of when you read like the Tale of Two Cities and some of the French bishops before the Revolution. Their luxurious lives are described, but this bishop isn't like that. He lives in a beat-up old house with an old servant maid, and the only thing of value he has is some silverware and some candlesticks, which were pretty valuable. But that's really all he had. He ate very simple food and was a very dear man. So Jean Valjean is now at his house, and he gets given a meal, and they go to bed at night. And wouldn't you know it, Jean Valjean steals all the silverware and the candlesticks and runs out, where he's caught by the police. And they drag him back to the bishop's house and says, "Is this your stuff?" And the bishop says, "No, I gave all this stuff to this man." A complete and overwhelming act of mercy and generosity on the part of this wonderful bishop. And Jean Valjean is like, can't believe what he's heard. And so he goes off and he's got all this loot, and it's all his. And he's able to sell it and become a rather wealthy man, because he invents a process, some kind of an industrial process. In a neighboring town, he sets up a factory to make these things he invented, and it makes a lot of money. And thanks to the influence of the bishop, Jean Valjean becomes a wonderful person, a really generous, decent person, and all the people who work in his factory prosper and are treated well. And he eventually is made the mayor of this little town. Now, he's not going by the name Jean Valjean anymore. He's got another of his many different names. And meanwhile, though, there is this police officer named Javert. He's the second character we're going to talk about a little bit. And he is not a bad person, but he's an extremely zealous police officer. And I didn't mention, but after Jean Valjean ran away from the bishop's house, he did commit one really tiny crime inadvertently. And just of no suck, he found the coin on the ground and didn't give it back to the person it belonged to. And then after that, he was completely repented and never committed another crime again, really. And but Javert finds out about this, and he really wants, and he hates Jean Valjean, and he wants to put him back in jail. So he's trying to chase him here and there, and he makes Jean Valjean's life very, very difficult because he's always aware that this cop is on his trail. So he's always like staying on the lowdown. Can't really use his real name, has to be careful what he spends money on, that kind of thing. So meanwhile, in a different town, we're on to our third character, still a young woman named Fantine, who falls for a handsome young man who gets her pregnant and abandons her. So she winds up working in the factory, Jean Valjean's factory. And she has given birth to a daughter she names Cosette. Now, she can't really take her daughter with her to the factory town, so on the road there, she leaves her daughter with these people called the Thénardiers, who are purely evil people. They run an inn, and Fantine, who is honestly a complete idiot, decides these would be just the right people to take care of her daughter, who's just a little toddler at this time. Now, the Thénardiers have their own children who they treat like prince and princesses, but little Cosette is treated very badly. She pretty much lives under the table and eats the food that's thrown to the dogs. So this is the situation. Now, Fantine loses her job at the factory and becomes a woman of ill repute. And she sells her teeth and she sells her hair, anything, because she's trying to pay the money she owes to the Thénardiers, who keep demanding more and more money. Poor Fantine hasn't seen her little Cosette in years, and she just despairs of ever getting her back. Well, because of the horrible life she's living, she gets sick and is just about to die, but before she dies, she tells Jean Valjean, who, remember, is the mayor of the town now, her whole story, and just begs him, please, go get Cosette and please save her. So he says, okay, and she dies, and he does. He goes and finds her and pays off the Thénardiers and gets little Cosette back, for himself, because Fantine's dead. And the rest of the story, the rest of the book, he lives his life as Cosette's father, and she lives her life as his daughter. And there's nothing weird or creepy going on at all. And so for a while, they live in a monastery or a convent. While they were on the lam, he runs into somebody who he treated very kindly once, saved his life. And this person was a gardener in this convent, and he brings him in and convinces the sisters to let the little girl Cosette go to the school, and Jean Valjean is like a second gardener there. So they live there for a long time, until Cosette is pretty much a teenager, and the nuns are kind of thinking it's time for her to become a nun. And Jean Valjean who's got a third name by now, doesn't really want Cosette to be a nun. He would rather she had more opportunities in life. Or so he says. It seems like that, but then what's happening now is something he must have dreaded, because they used to go for walks. And after many years had gone by, he quit thinking about Javert very much, but they used to cautiously go for walks in this park. And Cosette catches the eyes of a handsome young man named Marius, and they catch each other's eyes, and they start meeting secretly, and eventually they get married. And but it seems that Jean Valjean isn't as happy for his daughter to get married as he's not as disinterested as it appears. He's heartbroken that she gets married, and he really hates Marius. But there's a little a situation where Paris is under siege and there's barricades, all that kind of thing. And Marius appears dead, but Jean Valjean rescues them and they escape through a fascinating scene through the sewers of Paris. And the story eventually comes to, I thought, a rather unsatisfactory ending. Not everybody more or less reconciles. Jean Valjean accepts the fact that his daughter and Marius are going to get happily married, but he does seem to die of sorrow. And the evil Thénardiers move to America and become slave traders. And so that is the plot of Les Miserables, which I think could probably be perfectly compacted into 300 pages, but goes on for a while because of the digressions. So these are the high points that I told you. There are a lot of other parts going on. It's a very long book and it has a lot of details. And it has much to say about mercy, justice, and war. Now, this book is about the same length as another novel we discussed here. That would be, which took place more or less the same time in France and has some points of similarity. And that would be The Count of Monte Cristo. I had thought that Les Miserables might be like The Count of Monte Cristo. I didn't know very much about it. And while they have much in common, there are some definite differences. But here are some of the similarities. In both cases, the hero is wrongly imprisoned and escapes. Here are both saved. Their souls are saved. They're brought to decency by saintly priests. Victor Hugo's character is rescued by the saintly bishop, and the Count of Monte Cristo, Dante as his name was, is emotionally rescued by the priest in the neighboring dungeon, who teaches him all he needs to know and tells him how to find the treasure. So they both get wealthy, the Count by finding the treasure on the island, and Jean Valjean by selling the loot that he stole from the bishop. So, and they both are foster fathers to orphans. So Count of Monte Cristo actually marries his foster child, which is a little sketchy, but Jean Valjean is a decent father all the way through to the end, although he was heartbroken when she got married, literally. Now, they both have digressions, but not as most of the Count of Monte Cristo is action. It's a real page turner. Lots going on, lots of characters interacting with each other. It's totally, but there are some digressions. But Victor Hugo's book here, in my opinion, is almost unreadable. It's almost unreadable, in my opinion, because of all the digressions. Now, there are books, long books that have digressions, like Moby Dick is known for its digressions, but they're a little different. You know, in Moby Dick, there'll be a whole chapter on whale taxonomy. Well, I'm interested in whale taxonomy, you know? So I'm glad to see those. But these are all about things I don't know about, don't care about, and made the book a real slog, I have to say. It was a real slog. Now movies. Here's some more downers. The 2012 movie was based on a stage play by the same name, Les Miserables, and I had an all-star cast. You can look it up yourself, see who they were. I didn't enjoy it at all, and I struggled to pay attention. And fortunately, I had some knitting I was doing that I could concentrate on. And the reason largely is I do not enjoy most Broadway-style singing. But sometimes it's done pretty well. Like the Phantom of the Opera had a lot of that kind of singing, and that was great. I mean, still not my favorite kind of singing, but it was pretty good. But I didn't find the singing in this movie even to be very good. And so there you are. If you like that kind of thing, that's just exactly the kind of thing you like. So it's time to rate the book. Believe it or not, I'm going to give it 2 levels of rating. For high level, I'm going to give it a 10 out of 10. It is a famous epic book. Many people love it. My neighbor Horace says it's his favorite book, and I respect Horace's opinions. But for its grandeur and its contribution to the literary world, it is a classic that cannot be denied. And I'll give it a 10 out of 10 just because of, it's a valuable addition to the literary world, even though it doesn't do much for me. So for myself, as far as my own level of enjoyment goes, I'll give it a 5 out of 10. The chase through the sewers of Paris is pretty exciting. And the movie, I'm giving it a 2 out of 10. It had some great scenery. I just didn't care for it. So that is Les Miserables, which you can tell I had mixed feelings about. Not my favorite of the books we've discussed this year. For instance, I will probably, when I get through my 100 books, I will probably read The Count of Monte Cristo again. I will not be reading Les Miserables again. So, but, I probably have the minority view here. So that's it for this show. It's nice to see you all again. I know I've been away for a while. We've had a lot of going on because we just had Orthodox Easter, which we call Pascha. And there was a lot leading up to it and a lot leading after it. After Lent, after Pascha, I ate entirely too much. I'm trying to recover from my overindulgence and feasting and rejoicing because Christ is risen. Truly is risen. And thank you, and I'll see you soon.